Hello survivors and welcome to today's video. So we've got something a bit different for this channel. I was going to post this just on the second channel, which is a new channel I've made for craft and cosplays and stuff like that. But because it's Ark related, I thought I'd post it here. So if you do want to know like what glues and what materials I use and stuff like that, I will put an extended version on the second channel in the coming weeks. But yeah, without further ado, and under the watchful eye of our great overlord, let's go make Ragnarok Blue Obelisk. So first off, I'm going to apologise for my potato camera. I started this out using just a webcam. It does get better towards the very end of the video where I actually upgraded, so I am sorry about this. This is all I had. So far we've got our base, which is a bit of plywood with some XPS foam on it. And I've cut the foam out in the kind of shape that I'd like it to be. And I've cut out some smaller XPS foam for the centre circles. And then this bit here will be the actual platform, the obelisk platform itself. I'm just going to make some holes and lines where I want the wires to go, because I do want this to light up. I think that would just make it look a lot better. So now we just glue it all down with a shit ton of PVA glue. And I'm lucky I didn't get my hair stuck in that then, because I had my head right in front of the camera. Sorry about that. And I've seen this tip on how to make rocks out of plaster of Paris. So I'm going to use some plaster of Paris and water and pour it into these like foil templates that I've crushed up. And hopefully that'll go well. We'll see a little bit later. So you know on the obelisk there's that one bit that like has a slope down and then the other side that has a drop down. So I've got to make the slope. So I'm going to do that with some more foam. You'll know the bit because sometimes you drop off one end and then you have to run all the way back around then to go up the slope to get back onto the obelisk. We've all done it, haven't we? And then we can glue all that down and this is how it looks. Got in the way of the camera again. And I've made some of the stand-in stones that go around the middle of the obelisk. And here I'm just cutting into them just to add a bit of texture to make them look a bit more like rocks. And I'm going to glue on some of these plaster rocks that we made earlier. If I can keep hold of them, they're slippery little bastards. But yeah, as you can see, they turned out quite well considering it was my first time to make any. Then we're going to make it look like a cake because this plaster and Mod Podge looks a bit like icing. Don't do this without gloves if you give it a go because I was a hell of a mess. I learnt my lesson though. I put my gloves on and I managed to get a better consistency on the stuff that I was putting on it as well. So while we're doing a bit of painting, I just want to talk about why I've decided to do Ragnarok Blue Obelisk. I've been wanting to do a new diorama for ages and the Dino Lord came up with the idea of doing one of the obelisks from Ark and I thought, oh my god, that would be amazing. So why Ragnarok Blue Obelisk? I feel like if you've played Ark for any amount of time, whether you're PvE or PvP, if you're PvE, you've been trading on Ragnarok Blue Obelisk. There's always trades happening down there. That's where everybody meets up. And if you're a PvP player, you'll know that a lot of the activity happens at this ob.
PvP at Blue. Oh, I'm missing out.
Oh, you're missing out.
Missing
Don't
out
worry, it'll
here.
be going on all day. Now we're going to add some embellishments to the centre platform. And I'm just using like skewers. I better go and pick that up because our dog will eat it. Bits of balsa wood and cardboard just to make this look a bit more detailed. So now most of the base is done and we've painted it black and we've got all these little extra bits on the centre area. We're going to move on and make the obelisk itself. So I've done a design on cardboard of what I want and then I'm going to cut this out of XPS foam. I'm going to need a lot of these because there's like 4 of these structures and I'm going to need 3 pieces for each one. So yeah, I've had to cut out a load of these. And now we can just glue them all together. Then add a bit of detail to them. So once we've primed it in black, we're going to assemble it all together. And now I need to work on putting the lights into the diamonds that go on either side of the obelisk. So I'm just going to fix them in place with some hot glue. Then I'm going to take some foam clay and I'm going to use this to make, do you know on the inside of the obelisk, you get it in caves where the artifacts and stuff are as well. It's sort of like this fleshy, techy stuff that's in there. It looks kind of alive. Well, I'm going to use foam clay to make this stuff and we're going to put it in all the places where it needs to be. And now it's a case of tidying it up. So I'm going to be cutting, sanding, filling, all that stuff just to get it a bit tidier. And then I had to find a way to attach the diamonds to the obelisk because I want them to be detachable. So because I'm using like these cork fairy lights, I need a way to be able to change the battery if need be. And so using bits of chainmail and like this earring backs that I got in a jewelry making set, I've managed to find a way to make it work. Now we've got to paint it, and I loved painting this. I thought painting this was just so much fun. So I did initially try to go a bit like realistic, and I thought, no, this is from a video game, so you want it to pop and you want it to look a bit nuts. So I went a bit crazy on the shading, and you can see what the results are here. So I do need to find a way to attach the obelisk to the base. I've got like this long perspex tube. It should fit good into the hole here, and I can slot that over the top, and hopefully it will. Oh, it's not. It keeps falling over, but it works. So I just need to find a way to stop it being wonky, because we do not want the leaning tower of obelisk, do we? Oh, it's gone again. So this will definitely work. I just need to cut it to the right length, and then I'm going to put a load of foam clay in the center to sort of hold it in an upright position. Now if I move on to the center part of the obelisk, so it's got like that mesh thing in the middle. So I've airbrushed some mesh onto this EVA foam, and I'm gonna just put that around the center, and hopefully it looks okay. Now that I've masked it all out, I can paint the silver bits onto the obelisk platform. And then it's time for the bit I've been so excited for, so I get to do my sand pour. So first I'm gonna paint the whole thing in brown, and then I'm gonna put some PVA glue on it, and then pour that sand on. And this was so satisfying because it took me so long to get to this stage that when it was time for the sand, I was just buzzing, and I just thought this just looks so good. It started to look more like Rag Blew Up when I put the sand on, and I felt so happy about it. And then once that was dry, I can now start dry brushing. So if you don't know what that is, that's when you get like a small amount of paint on your brush, you wipe like most of it off. And then you just like sort of go lightly over the surface so you don't go into the crevices. So the black paint from underneath is still showing through and it looks like shadows. I'm just going to keep going over that with gradually lighter coats, using a variation of different tones of browns and greys, and then pretty much a white for the final top bit. And I'm quite happy with how it turned out looking. So as you know, the obelisk has got a lot of foliage, it's got a lot of trees, it's got a lot of pebbles. So I've had to make all of these. So for the palm trees, as you can see, I had some skewers which I wrapped in masking tape. Then I frayed some packaging string and glued that to the top. Once I'd painted these, I then stuck on some leaves from an old fake plant I had lying around the house. I kind of cut into the edges to fray them a little bit to make them look a bit more like palm tree leaves. And then once the top bit of these was in primer, I did the same thing for the shrubs. And I'm going to glue these to some baking paper with some sand so that I can peel them off later and stick them to the diorama. When it came to painting the little trees, this was really fun. So I just used a sponge with some bright green paint and dabbed that all over first. And then I took some yellow paint on a sponge and went around the very edges to make it look like it had been sort of dried in the sun. And then as a final touch, I added like an orangey brown just to some areas to make it look like it had actually been burnt by the sun. With the pebbles, I made them out of like foam clay, and that was really fun. So, and then I just painted them the same way I did the other rocks, except with a sponge, dabbing it on with like greys and tans, and then just gradually getting lighter. The pebbles were some of my most fun things to make on this. I don't know why, I just really enjoyed making those. Ugh, okay, so this bit, I had to do it, obviously. I've got to line these little sections on the center platform, so I'm gonna have to do it with wire, and oh my god, this took ages. And I had to super glue them on, and there was no other way to do it than with my fingers, so I ended up with just really messy fingers after this. They were awful, but I think the end result was worth it. Now, I've always wanted to do a river, and we watch lots of people doing dioramas and stuff, and they use epoxy resin, and it always looks a bit scary and daunting, so I'm just going to paint on where I want the water to be, and then we're going to go for an epoxy pour, and this is going to be quite nerve-wracking, because like I said, it's my first time. I've seen a lot of people have leaks where it's like leaked all over their table and their floor, so I've masked my diorama out with like duct tape and some foam, and I'm hoping that it holds it. It's like a 2-part epoxy off eBay, so I'm gonna mix those together with a little bit of colorant, and then I've got to mix it for a few minutes before I can pour it, all the while getting really nervous. So I'm going to use this stick to stop it being so bubbly. If I pour it onto that first before it goes into the diorama, this should apparently stop bubbles, so let's just see how it goes. It seems to be going okay so far, so once it's in there, I'm going to use the stick to sort of spread the resin to the areas where I want it to be. There was a couple bubbles that I noticed after I'd poured it on. So what I did, I took a lighter and just used that to like pop them. If you burn them, they pop, so that was handy. Luckily, there was minimal leak from the epoxy pour. I had a few drips, but it was nothing too bad. So we can get on now and start placing the pebbles, the foliage, and the trees all around where we'd like them to be. I've tried to get them kind of accurate to the game, so hopefully I've done it justice. So you know there's like little supply boxes on the back right end of the obelisk. So I'm going to make a few of them with some foam and some balsa wood and paint them up. And now I want the water to look a little bit more wavy. So I'm using a gloss Mod Podge and just sort of swishing it around with my brush to make it look like kind of like waves. And I'm going to do that around the sides of the diorama as well. And you can see once it's dry, it actually looks a lot better. It looks a bit more realistic, like it is water and it's moving, you know? What do you always find on an obelisk platform? It's a baggie, yeah. Someone's always left a baggie there. So the Dino Lord suggested I put one of these on it. And this was the tiniest, most annoying thing to make. So I thought I'd have a go out of clay. And yeah, I think it turned out okay. But God, this was difficult because it's like smaller than my thumbnail. But we'll see what it's like once it's painted later. Now I need a plaque to go on the bit that covers the battery, and this was a bit of a pain in the backside. So I used coffee stirrers for this. I painted them with like a watery brown, but I wiped most of the paint off and it looked quite nice. So when I came to stamp my Game Changer name on there, I had a bit of trouble. So first time the E was the wrong way around, and then the second time... Yeah, I was gutted. I did not want to sand and paint this thing another time, so I got it right the third time anyway. So I've also made like a little bracket for it to fit in, to slot in and out of. And I'm just going to glue that on to the obelisk around the battery with some super glue. And it fits good. So pretty much the last thing we're going to need to make is the center console that you access to travel servers or do the bosses and stuff. So I've made that out of coffee stirrers as well. And I'm just going to give it a sand and make sure that it'll go through the Perspex pipe that we're using to hold the obelisk up. And it does, so I'm happy about that. So we just need to paint that up now. And then attach it to the lights that are coming from the top of the obelisk. And then we slide it through and hope it reaches the bottom, and it does. So this is the baggie after paint. I think it turned out alright. So I'm going to use some PVA glue and stick that down near the center console. And then there's one thing left to do, and that's turn the lights on and roll the glamour shots. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I loved making it.